Eugene Krabs, the man, the myth, the cheapest crab in the sea. We know him for his mountain of money. But what happens when that mountain disappears? Most of the time, Mr. Krabs is the one doing the taking. But today, we are looking at the rare and tragic times where the world took it all back. These are the moments Mr. Krabs lost everything. Mr. Krabs has always been protective of his money. Very protective. So protective, in fact, that in the lost mattress, he decides the safest place to store his life savings isn't a bank. It's his mattress. Unfortunately, nobody else knows that. After seeing Mr. Krabs struggle to sleep on his old, worn-out mattress, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward decide to do something nice for their boss. They throw the mattress away and replace it with a brand new one. A thoughtful gesture for most people. A complete disaster for Mr. Krabs. The moment he learns what happened, panic sets in. Not because he lost a mattress, but because he lost everything hidden inside it. Years of savings, all tossed into a dump somewhere in Bikini Bottom. For a character who measures success in dollars and cents. This is about as bad as it gets. In fact, the shock is so severe that Mr. Krabs falls into what the episode calls a cash coma. His entire world comes to a stop the second he believes his fortune is gone. And honestly, it's not hard to see why. Unlike some entries on this list where Mr. Krabs risks losing everything, here he actually believes it's already happened. As far as he's concerned, his money is gone forever. Meanwhile, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward are left with the impossible task of fixing the mistake. Retrieving a mattress from a massive dump is difficult enough. Doing it while avoiding a giant guard worm makes it even worse. What follows is a desperate attempt to recover the one thing Mr. Krabs values most: his money. The episode is a perfect example of how much of Mr. Krabs' identity is tied to his fortune. The loss of a single mattress completely breaks him, because to him, that mattress represented everything he had worked for. And for a while, it looks like it's all gone. For Mr. Krabs, few losses hit harder than this one, because unlike losing a business or an employee, this was his life savings. And for one terrifying moment, he thought it had disappeared forever. If there's one thing Mr. Krabs loves more than money, it's... Actually, there probably isn't. And Born Again Krabs might be the best example of that. The episode asks a simple question: how much is SpongeBob worth to Mr. Krabs? The answer somehow ends up being 62 cents.
62 cents!
After the Flying Dutchman arrives at the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs finds himself in a position to make a quick profit. Without thinking much about the consequences, he agrees to sell SpongeBob to the ghostly pirate in exchange for a handful of coins. Just like that, SpongeBob is gone. And at first, Mr. Krabs couldn't be happier. He celebrates the deal, admires his new wealth, and acts as if he just pulled off the greatest business transaction of his life. To him, it's easy money, no risks, no downsides, or so he thinks. The problem is that everyone around him sees the deal for what it really is. He didn't sell a piece of equipment. He didn't sell part of the restaurant. He sold SpongeBob. The more Mr. Krabs is confronted with that reality, the harder it becomes to ignore. What initially felt like a victory slowly starts to feel like a mistake. Mr. Krabs begins worrying about something more important than money: his conscience. As the guilt starts piling up, the 62 cents suddenly doesn't seem like much of a bargain anymore. In fact, it becomes a constant reminder of how cheaply he was willing to give away someone who had been nothing but loyal to him. That's what makes this such a memorable loss for Mr. Krabs. Technically, he made a profit, but in every other way, he lost. He lost SpongeBob. For a character who usually measures success by the amount of money in his pocket, Born Again Krabs shows what happens when a profit comes at too high a cost. And all it took was 62 cents. For most of the series, Mr. Krabs treats SpongeBob like any other employee. Sure, he appreciates his work, but he rarely shows it. After all, in Mr. Krabs' mind, the Krusty Krab's success comes from one thing: himself. But in Welcome to the Chum Bucket, he learns just how wrong that assumption can be. It all starts during a card game with Plankton. The stakes keep rising until Mr. Krabs makes one of the worst bets of his life. SpongeBob. And somehow, he loses. Just like that, the Krusty Krab star fry cook is gone. At first, it doesn't seem like the end of the world. Mr. Krabs still owns the restaurant. He still has the Krabby Patty formula. And he still has customers. But what he doesn't have is the one employee who keeps everything running smoothly. Meanwhile, Plankton suddenly finds himself with exactly what he's always needed. Not a secret formula, not a fancy invention, a dedicated worker. Watching SpongeBob work for the chum bucket quickly becomes unbearable for Mr. Krabs. For years, Plankton had failed to compete with the Krusty Krab. Now, for the first time, he actually has a chance. And that's when Mr. Krabs realizes what he's lost. Not money, not property, the heart of his business. It's one of the rare moments in the series where Mr. Krabs' greatest loss isn't measured in dollars. Losing SpongeBob forces him to confront something he usually ignores. The Krusty Krab's success depends on more than just its owner. Without SpongeBob behind the grill, even Mr. Krabs starts to wonder if the Krusty Krab can survive. For most people, selling a successful business for a fortune would be a dream come true. For Mr. Krabs, it turns out to be a nightmare. In selling out, a wealthy businessman offers to buy the Krusty Krab. And after years of chasing money, Mr. Krabs finally gets what should be the perfect deal. A huge payout. No more long hours. First, it seems like he's won. The Krusty Krab is no longer his responsibility, and his pockets are fuller than ever. It's the kind of outcome Mr. Krabs has spent years working toward. But it doesn't take long for the excitement to wear off. Without the restaurant, Mr. Krabs suddenly has nothing to do. There's no business to manage, no customers to serve, and no daily profits to obsess over. For the first time in years, he has all the free time he could ever want, and he hates it. As the days pass, he begins to realize that the Krusty Krab was more than just a source of income. It had become his purpose, his routine, the thing that gave structure to his life. The money is still there, but the satisfaction isn't. That's what makes this loss different from the others on this list. Mr. Krabs doesn't lose the Krusty Krab because of a lawsuit, a bad deal, or one of Plankton's schemes. He gives it away himself, only to discover that what he really valued wasn't the sale price. It was ownership. For a character defined by his love of money, selling out reveals something surprisingly important. Mr. Krabs doesn't just enjoy having money, he enjoys earning it. And once the Krusty Krab is gone, he finally understands the difference. For a brief time, Mr. Krabs has everything he thought he ever wanted. But in the process, he loses the one thing he never realized he couldn't live without. For a character who spends nearly every waking moment chasing money, Mr. Krabs comes surprisingly close to losing everything on a regular basis. Sometimes it's because of his greed. Sometimes it's because of a bad decision. And sometimes it's because he simply fails to appreciate what he already has. Across all of these episodes, one thing becomes clear. The things Mr. Krabs values most aren't always what he thinks they are. Whether it's the Krusty Krab, his life savings, or even SpongeBob himself, losing them forces him to realize just how important they really are. Of course, being Mr. Krabs, those lessons rarely last forever. Before long, he's usually back to counting pennies and looking for the next big profit. But for a brief moment in each of these stories, the owner of the Krusty Krab is reminded that even he isn't immune to loss. And when you're Eugene Krabs, losing everything can be a lot easier than making it back. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. SpongeBob SquarePants has had a lot of jobs in Bikini Bottom, but none of them seem to matter as much as the Krusty Krab. For a place that technically pays minimum wage, it does not look like a normal workplace. There is something about it that feels different. The way SpongeBob shows up, the way he works, the way he talks about it like it is the most important place in the entire ocean. While most employees see it as a way to earn money, SpongeBob treats it with a level of seriousness that feels completely out of place for fast food work. That is what makes it unusual to watch, because the Krusty Krab is not a temple, not a battlefield, and not a place where anything life-changing is supposed to happen. Yet SpongeBob behaves as if it is all of those things at once. And over time, that raises one simple question. Why does SpongeBob treat the Krusty Krab like it is something far bigger than just a job? Because even when nothing important is happening, he acts like everything is. To understand SpongeBob's relationship with the Krusty Krab, it helps to go all the way back to the beginning. The very first episode. Most people apply for a job because they need money. Others do it because they need experience or simply have bills to pay. SpongeBob's reason is completely different. In Help Wanted, becoming a fry cook is presented as the goal he has been working toward his entire life. Before he even steps inside the Krusty Krab, he already talks about the position as if it is his dream career. And when Mr. Krabs initially rejects him, SpongeBob does not respond like a normal applicant. He is devastated. The opportunity means that much to him. What makes the episode so interesting is how seriously SpongeBob takes every part of the process. Then comes the moment that changes everything. When a massive crowd suddenly demands Krabby Patties, SpongeBob steps into the kitchen and performs almost effortlessly. It is as if he was built for the job. While everyone else sees a chaotic restaurant, SpongeBob sees exactly where he belongs. By the end of the episode, he is not celebrating a paycheck. He is celebrating the fact that he finally made it. And that might be the most important detail of all, which helps explain why, for the rest of the series, he treats the Krusty Krab as something far more important than just a place to work. If Help Wanted shows how SpongeBob joined the Krusty Krab, then Krusty Krab training video shows how deeply that job has become part of his identity. The episode is presented as an official training video for Krusty Krab employees. On the surface, it is simply explaining how the restaurant operates. But the more you watch, the stranger it becomes. Everything is treated with an unusual level of importance. The history of the restaurant, the duties of the employees, even the process of taking an order. Every aspect of working at the Krusty Krab is presented as if it follows a strict set of rules that must never be questioned. And SpongeBob embraces every single one of them. Unlike Squidward, who sees the training material as boring and pointless, SpongeBob treats it like essential knowledge. He follows procedures exactly as instructed and approaches even the smallest tasks with complete dedication. That is what makes the episode so revealing. Most employees learn workplace rules because they have to. SpongeBob learns them because he genuinely wants to. In many ways, the episode feels less like a training video and more like a guide to SpongeBob's worldview. It shows how he approaches his work, why he takes it so seriously, and why he rarely questions anything related to the restaurant. For SpongeBob, the Krusty Krab is not just a building where he spends part of his day. It is a system he believes in. And if Help Wanted was the beginning of that belief, Krusty Krab training video might be the clearest example of just how far it goes. If the first episode showed SpongeBob dreaming of working at the Krusty Krab, and the second showed him embracing its rules and philosophy, then New Digs takes things to an entirely different level. Because this is the episode where SpongeBob literally moves into the restaurant. The story begins when SpongeBob arrives at work 1 minute late. For most employees, that would be a minor inconvenience. For SpongeBob, it feels like a personal failure. The idea of being late bothers him so much that he starts looking for a permanent solution. And somehow, the solution he comes up with is living at the Krusty Krab. What makes the episode so important to this theory is how natural the decision feels to SpongeBob. He is not forced to do it. Nobody suggests it seriously. In fact, the original idea comes from one of Squidward's sarcastic remarks. Yet SpongeBob immediately sees it as a great plan. As the episode continues, he begins transforming the Krusty Krab into his new home. He brings in his furniture, his pet, and eventually even his family. The line between workplace and home slowly disappears, and that may be the most revealing part of all. To him, the Krusty Krab is already such a central part of his life that moving in feels completely reasonable. By the end of the episode, the restaurant has become more than a place where he works. It has become a place where he believes he belongs. And if someone is willing to live inside their workplace just to avoid missing a shift, it becomes a lot easier to understand why they might view that workplace as something far more important than a job. So, why does SpongeBob treat the Krusty Krab like a sacred religious temple instead of a minimum wage job? The simplest answer is that SpongeBob views the Krusty Krab as something far more important than employment. Looking at these episodes together, a pattern starts to emerge. In Help Wanted, becoming a fry cook is presented as his lifelong dream. In Krusty Krab training video, he embraces the restaurant's rules and traditions with complete dedication. And in New Digs, he goes as far as moving into the building itself. These are not the actions of someone who is simply trying to earn a paycheck. For most characters in Bikini Bottom, the Krusty Krab is exactly what it appears to be: a fast food restaurant. Squidward sees it as a place to collect a salary. Mr. Krabs sees it as a business. SpongeBob sees something entirely different. The restaurant gives him structure, responsibility, and a sense of belonging. Every day, he gets to do something he genuinely enjoys while making customers happy and contributing to a place he cares about. That is why he approaches every shift with so much enthusiasm. His motivation has very little to do with money. What drives him is the feeling that he is exactly where he is supposed to be. In a strange way, the restaurant provides many of the things people usually search for elsewhere: purpose, routine, community, and a set of values to follow. And once you look at it from that perspective, SpongeBob's behavior becomes much easier to understand. The Krusty Krab may be an ordinary restaurant to everyone else, but to SpongeBob, it is one of the most important places in his entire life. At first glance, SpongeBob's devotion to the Krusty Krab seems completely ridiculous. After all, it is a fast food restaurant run by one of the cheapest bosses in Bikini Bottom. Most people would count the hours until their shift ends. SpongeBob cannot wait for the next one to begin. But after looking at these episodes, it becomes clear that his relationship with the Krusty Krab was never meant to be normal. From the moment he was hired, SpongeBob found something that gave him purpose and direction. The restaurant became more than just the place where he worked. It became one of the defining parts of who he is. But it does explain why his dedication never fades, no matter how difficult the job becomes. Because while everyone else sees a restaurant, SpongeBob sees the place where he gets to do what he loves most. And that may be the real reason he treats the Krusty Krab like a sacred temple. Not because the building itself is special, but because of what it represents to him. For most of SpongeBob SquarePants, Squidward Tentacles is presented as the unhappiest resident of Bikini Bottom. He dislikes his job. He avoids his neighbors. He dreams of a better life, yet somehow always ends up back where he started. It is easy to assume that Squidward is simply impossible to please. But the series tells a more interesting story than that. Every so often, Squidward actually gets what he has been chasing all along: a successful concert, a peaceful afternoon, recognition for his talent, a chance to leave the Krusty Krab behind. Moments where life finally seems to be moving in the direction he always imagined. And for a brief time, he is genuinely happy. The strange part is that these moments almost never last. Sometimes they fall apart because of bad luck. Sometimes because of SpongeBob. Sometimes because of Squidward himself. Whatever the reason, happiness has a habit of slipping through his tentacles just when it finally seems within reach. Over the years, these moments have become one of the most consistent patterns in the series. Every small victory feels like the beginning of a new chapter, only for everything to unravel in the most unexpected way. Today, we are looking at the complete history of the time Squidward Tentacles came closer than ever to achieving the life he always wanted, and why, despite all those opportunities, lasting happiness always seemed just out of reach. For most of his life, Squidward has been convinced that the world simply refuses to recognize him. In his mind, he has the talent, he has the taste, he has the sophistication. What he lacks is an audience willing to appreciate any of it. So when the Two Faces of Squidward begins, it accidentally gives him something he has wanted for years: tension. Ironically, it has nothing to do with his music or his artwork. After accidentally slamming a door into his face, Squidward's appearance changes completely. Instead of looking like his usual self, he suddenly becomes incredibly handsome. Almost overnight, everyone's attitude toward him changes. The same people who barely noticed him before are now stopping in the street just to admire him. Crowds begin following him everywhere he goes. For a character who has spent years feeling ignored, it seems like everything is finally falling into place. And for a while, it genuinely is. The attention makes Squidward feel important in a way he rarely experiences throughout the series. He no longer has to convince people that he's special. They already believe it. Every room he enters is filled with admiration, and for perhaps the first time in his life, he becomes the center of attention without even trying. But there is a catch. The recognition Squidward receives has nothing to do with the things he actually values about himself. Nobody is asking to hear his clarinet. Nobody is celebrating the years he spent trying to become a respected artist. But as the crowds continue to grow, another problem begins to appear. The fame never stops. Everywhere Squidward goes, someone is watching him. His privacy disappears almost immediately. Simple errands become public events, and the quiet lifestyle he has always preferred slowly becomes impossible to maintain. Without realizing it, Squidward has traded one frustration for another. He spent years wishing people would notice him. Now he wishes they would leave him alone. It is one of the series' most ironic examples of Squidward getting exactly what he asked for, only to discover that reality is much less appealing than the fantasy he had built in his head. By the end of the episode, the fame disappears just as suddenly as it arrived, leaving Squidward right back where he started. At first, that feels like another one of his many disappointments. But looking back, it also reveals something important. This was never the life Squidward truly wanted. He wanted respect. He wanted people to admire his talent. He wanted to feel understood. Instead, he became famous for the one thing that had nothing to do with who he believed he was. For a brief moment, Squidward finally experienced the recognition he had been chasing for years. The problem was that it was recognition for the wrong reasons. And that is why this moment belongs on the list. Not because Squidward became happy, but because, for a short time, he believed he finally had everything he had been missing, only to realize that happiness built on the wrong foundation was never going to last. If there is one person Squidward wants to defeat more than anyone else, it is Squilliam Fancy Son. Every time Squilliam appears, he seems to have accomplished another dream that Squidward has spent years chasing. More success, more wealth, more recognition. In House Fancy, Squidward finally gets that opportunity. Everything begins when he sits down to watch his favorite home design television show, House Fancy. Before the program can even begin, Squilliam calls to reveal that his own house is being featured. Unable to hide his jealousy, Squidward boldly tells the show's host that his own home is even fancier. It is a claim he makes in the heat of the moment, only realizing afterward that he now has to prove it. For Squidward, the competition means far more than winning a magazine title. Naturally, SpongeBob offers to help prepare for the judging. As expected, the preparation quickly turns into chaos. Furniture is damaged, decorations are ruined. By the time Nicholas Withers is about to arrive, Squidward watches years of pride in his home fall apart in front of him. Then, in one final accident, the vacuum explodes and completely destroys the house. Watching the walls collapse feels like watching Squidward's hopes disappear with them. After everything that happened, another embarrassing defeat seems inevitable. Then the episode takes an unexpected turn. When Nicholas Withers sees the wreckage, he is fascinated. Instead of seeing a destroyed house, he sees a bold piece of modern design. To everyone's surprise, he declares Squidward's home the winner and crowns him House Fancy Prince of the Year. For once, Squidward gets to experience something that rarely happens throughout the series. He wins. Even better, he wins while Squilliam is forced to watch. The satisfaction on Squidward's face says everything. Years of comparing himself to his old rival finally lead to a moment where he comes out on top. Whether the judges reached that conclusion for unusual reasons hardly matters. The victory is official, and everyone present sees Squidward as the winner. That is what makes this episode so important. happiness for Squidward often comes from the hope that one day people will acknowledge his taste. House Fancy gives him exactly that, even if the path to victory is completely absurd. And for someone who measures so much of his self-worth against his lifelong rival, that victory brings him closer to genuine happiness than almost any other moment in the series. For years, Squidward has blamed his unhappiness on the people around him. His noisy neighbors, his frustrating job, and the constant chaos of Bikini Bottom all seem to stand between him and the quiet, sophisticated life he believes he deserves. So when Squidville gives him the chance to leave all of that behind, it feels like the answer he has been waiting for. After one argument too many with SpongeBob and Patrick, Squidward packs his belongings and moves away. His destination is Tentacle Acres, a peaceful gated community populated entirely by octopuses who share his interests and lifestyle. From the moment he arrives, everything appears perfect. The neighborhood is quiet. The houses are identical and beautifully maintained. The residents appreciate the same music, the same routines, and the same calm atmosphere that Squidward has always wanted. Nobody is running through the streets shouting. Nobody is blowing bubbles outside his window. For the first time in a long time, he finds himself surrounded by people who seem to understand him. Naturally, Squidward settles in almost immediately. He plays the clarinet with his neighbors, enjoys the community's daily activities. For a while, Squidward is genuinely happy. What makes this episode so interesting is that it finally tests one of the biggest questions surrounding his character. Would Squidward be happy if SpongeBob and Patrick disappeared from his life? At first, the answer seems obvious. Yes. Without constant interruptions, he finally has peace and quiet. But as the days pass, something begins to change. The routine that once felt comforting slowly becomes repetitive. The community that originally seemed perfect starts to feel strangely lifeless. Squidward realizes that he is no longer excited by the peace he worked so hard to find. He is simply bored. That realization changes the entire episode. For years, Squidward believed happiness was waiting somewhere else. Eventually, the endless routine becomes too much to ignore. Squidward leaves Tentacle Acres and returns to Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob and Patrick are waiting exactly as they always have been. It is an ending that says a great deal about Squidward. Squidville quietly suggests that Squidward's unhappiness cannot be explained by his surroundings alone. Changing his address solved some of his problems, but it also revealed new ones he never anticipated. For one brief chapter, Squidward found the peaceful life he had always imagined. Ironically, it was that very perfection that convinced him to leave it behind. Throughout the series, Squidward believes the world around him is the reason he can never be happy. Even the smallest inconvenience is enough to ruin his mood. After years of watching him complain about nearly everything, it becomes easy to assume that this is simply who Squidward is. Then Breath of Fresh Squidward asks an unexpected question. What if Squidward's personality changed instead of his circumstances? The episode begins with a freak accident. After being shocked by electricity, Squidward wakes up acting like a completely different person. The sarcastic, cynical cashier is gone, replaced by someone who smiles constantly, greets everyone with enthusiasm, and finds joy in even the simplest parts of everyday life. Naturally, nobody can believe it. SpongeBob and Patrick are thrilled to see the change. Even the residents of Bikini Bottom are surprised by how friendly and approachable Squidward suddenly becomes. Instead of pushing people away, he starts making genuine connections with them. For the first time in the series, people actually enjoy being around Squidward. And perhaps even more surprisingly, Squidward enjoys being around them too. Even SpongeBob's endless enthusiasm suddenly feels infectious instead of exhausting. For a while, Squidward experiences something that has been incredibly rare throughout the series: contentment. He is simply enjoying the life he already has. That is what makes this episode stand out from every other entry on this list. Most of Squidward's happiest moments come from finally achieving one of his goals. Here, happiness comes from a completely different place. His surroundings remain almost identical, yet his experience of them changes completely. Of course, the transformation does not last forever. By the end of the episode, another electrical accident restores Squidward's original personality, bringing back the familiar cynicism that defines him for the rest of the series. Almost immediately, the cheerful version of Squidward disappears, and life returns to normal. It is a funny ending. Looking back, Breath of Fresh Squidward feels less like a story about an electrical accident and more like a glimpse into an alternate version of the character, one where happiness was always possible. It simply required Squidward to see the same world through a different perspective. And for a short while, that version of Squidward may have been the happiest we ever saw him. If there is one episode that fans point to as Squidward's greatest victory, it is almost always Band Geeks. For years, Squilliam Fancy Son had represented everything Squidward believed he could have been. For the first time, Squidward is given a chance to prove him wrong. It begins with an unexpected phone call. Squilliam proudly explains that he has been asked to perform at the prestigious Bubble Bowl, only to reveal that he has no intention of showing up. Instead, he tricks Squidward into taking responsibility for the performance, fully expecting him to fail in front of thousands of spectators. It is exactly the kind of humiliation Squilliam enjoys, and exactly the kind of challenge Squidward cannot ignore. Determined to save his reputation, Squidward recruits the residents of Bikini Bottom to form a marching band. On paper, it sounds like a reasonable plan. In reality, it is a disaster. The band cannot stay in rhythm. The rehearsals descend into complete chaos. Every practice session seems to create more problems than it solves. With every failed rehearsal, Squilliam's prediction appears more likely. By the time the Bubble Bowl arrives, there is very little reason to believe the performance will succeed. Even Squidward begins to lose confidence. That is what makes the ending so satisfying. When the curtain rises, everything changes. The same group that stumbled through every rehearsal suddenly delivers a flawless performance. The band plays together perfectly. The crowd erupts with excitement. Standing at the front of the band, Squidward watches years of frustration disappear in a single performance. For one unforgettable moment, everything he had been chasing finally becomes reality. He finally earns a victory that nobody can take away from him. What makes this moment so meaningful is that the success comes from something Squidward truly cares about. Throughout the series, he constantly talks about his love for music and his dream of being recognized as a talented musician. Most of those ambitions end in disappointment or embarrassment. Band Geeks is different. His hard work finally leads somewhere. His leadership pays off. It is difficult to find another episode where Squidward experiences so many of the things he has wanted for so long. For a brief time, Squidward is exactly where he always hoped he would be. He is standing in front of an applauding crowd, conducting a successful performance, while Squilliam can do nothing but watch. Considering everything we know about Squidward, that may be the closest he ever comes to achieving genuine personal happiness. Looking back at these episodes, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. Squidward actually comes remarkably close to happiness far more often than people remember. He becomes famous. He defeats Squilliam. He finds his dream neighborhood. He discovers a version of himself that enjoys life. He even stands in front of a cheering stadium after delivering the performance he had always dreamed of. For brief moments, everything falls into place. The reason those moments stand out is because they never seem to last. Squidward is not simply the grumpy neighbor who exists to complain. He is someone who spends the entire series searching for a life that matches the one he imagined for himself. There is also a quiet irony running through all of these stories. The moments when Squidward is happiest are rarely the ones he plans for. Some arrive through complete accidents. Others happen because people he normally avoids end up helping him. Happiness was never completely out of Squidward's reach. It simply arrived in ways he never expected, and it rarely stayed long enough for him to believe it had finally arrived. That may be why Squidward remains one of the most relatable characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. Beneath the sarcasm and frustration is someone who never stopped believing that a better life was possible. Every now and then, he was right. He just never got to keep it. SpongeBob SquarePants is usually the character trying to help. Whether he's assisting his friends, solving problems around Bikini Bottom, or simply trying to do the right thing, his intentions are almost always good. But as the series has shown time and time again, good intentions don't always lead to good results. Throughout the show's history, SpongeBob has found himself at the center of some surprisingly large disasters. Sometimes it's because he ignores an obvious warning. Other times it's because he takes a simple idea far too far. And occasionally, he creates chaos without even realizing it. Today, we're looking at some of the times SpongeBob made things worse. These are the episodes where a bad situation became even worse because of SpongeBob's actions, decisions, or inability to recognize the problem before it was too late. One of the clearest examples of SpongeBob making a bad situation even worse comes from whatever happened to SpongeBob. At the start of the episode, SpongeBob is simply having one of those days where nothing seems to go right. His intentions are completely harmless, but nearly every interaction ends in disaster. He accidentally ruins Patrick's birthday celebration, causes problems for Sandy, irritates Squidward, and creates trouble at the Krusty Krab. None of these incidents are done out of malice, but from the perspective of everyone around him, it looks like SpongeBob is causing chaos wherever he goes. The situation becomes worse because the mistakes keep piling up. Normally, SpongeBob is able to recover from an embarrassing moment and move on. But this time there is no chance for that. Every person he meets has a new reason to be upset with him. Instead of one isolated accident, it turns into a chain reaction that follows him throughout the entire day. The more he tries to fix things, the more problems appear. It's the kind of situation where every attempt at damage control only creates another misunderstanding. What makes this episode interesting is that SpongeBob's biggest mistake isn't actually any of the accidents themselves. The real problem begins when he starts believing that everyone truly hates him. After hearing criticism from all directions, he convinces himself that Bikini Bottom would be better off without him. Rather than talking things through or waiting for everyone to calm down, he decides to leave. In doing so, he turns a bad day into a much larger crisis. His disappearance immediately affects everyone around him. The people who were angry at him before quickly realize that they never wanted him gone. Most of their frustrations came from the heat of the moment, but SpongeBob takes every complaint to heart. Because of that, what could have been solved with a simple apology becomes a town-wide search effort. His friends suddenly have a much bigger problem than a ruined birthday cake or a broken invention. The consequences have grown far beyond anything that happened at the beginning of the episode. A few everyday mistakes have somehow led to SpongeBob forgetting who he is and becoming separated from everyone who cares about him. Looking back, that's what makes this episode fit so well with the idea of SpongeBob making things worse. The real damage came from how SpongeBob responded to them. By assuming the worst and running away from his problems, he unintentionally created a situation that was far more serious than anything he had done earlier in the day. That gives the episode a different feel from most SpongeBob stories. Instead of watching a character create problems through bad judgment, we're watching someone become overwhelmed by a series of failures and make a decision that only deepens the situation. Another episode that fits perfectly into the time SpongeBob made things worse is Keep Bikini Bottom Beautiful. Unlike some examples where SpongeBob creates the problem from the beginning, this one starts with Squidward already dealing with trouble. After being accused of littering and sentenced to community service, Squidward becomes obsessed with cleaning Bikini Bottom and earning recognition for it. What should have been a simple cleanup project quickly turns into a frustrating challenge as more and more garbage begins piling up around him. At first, SpongeBob isn't the cause of the disaster. In fact, he genuinely wants to help. After seeing Squidward struggle with an impossible amount of trash, SpongeBob offers his assistance. Normally, having an enthusiastic helper would be a good thing. The problem is that SpongeBob approaches the task with his usual extreme level of dedication. Instead of simply helping Squidward manage the mess, he takes matters into his own hands and comes up with solutions that create even bigger problems than the garbage itself. One of the funniest parts of the episode is that SpongeBob never realizes anything is going wrong. He manages to make huge amounts of trash disappear, and he expects Squidward to be impressed. But when Squidward returns home expecting relief, he discovers that the garbage hasn't actually been removed at all. SpongeBob has simply relocated it. The result is a giant garbage replica of Squidward's house sitting directly on his property. Instead of solving the problem, SpongeBob has transformed it into an even larger and more visible disaster. This is what makes the episode such a strong example for this topic. SpongeBob's actions continuously escalate the situation. Every time Squidward thinks he's getting closer to fixing the mess, SpongeBob introduces a new complication. The trash becomes larger, the cleanup becomes more difficult, and the number of problems multiplies. As the situation continues to spiral, Squidward becomes increasingly desperate. The cleanup effort eventually becomes less about making Bikini Bottom beautiful and more about surviving the consequences of SpongeBob's help. What's interesting is that SpongeBob never acts maliciously. There isn't a single moment where he's trying to sabotage Squidward. In fact, he spends the entire episode believing he's making life easier for him. That misunderstanding is what drives most of the comedy. The audience can clearly see that every new idea is making things worse, but SpongeBob remains completely convinced that he's saving the day. Another episode that perfectly fits the time SpongeBob made things worse is A Pal for Gary. What makes this one stand out is that the disaster begins with something genuinely thoughtful. SpongeBob feels guilty about how much time Gary spends alone while he's at work. He worries that his pet is lonely throughout the day, and he wants to find a way to make Gary happier. On paper, it's one of the most caring things SpongeBob has ever tried to do. The problem is that his solution ends up creating a far bigger problem than the one he was trying to solve. While heading home, SpongeBob discovers a strange creature called a puffy fluff and immediately becomes fascinated by how cute and harmless it appears. A seller explicitly warns him that these creatures are dangerous around other pets and can become extremely aggressive. Instead of listening, SpongeBob becomes so focused on the idea of giving Gary a companion that he ignores every warning he receives. That decision ends up setting the entire episode in motion. As soon as Puffy Fluffy enters the house, Gary realizes something is wrong. Whenever SpongeBob isn't looking, the creature reveals its true nature and begins terrorizing him. What makes the situation especially frustrating is that Gary has no way to clearly explain what's happening. Every attempt he makes to warn SpongeBob is misunderstood. Rather than recognizing Gary's fear, SpongeBob assumes his pet is simply refusing to get along with the newcomer. This is where SpongeBob starts making the situation worse. Instead of paying attention to Gary's behavior, he jumps to conclusions. He interprets Gary's panic as jealousy. He interprets his attempts to escape as bad behavior. Even when things around the house start getting damaged, SpongeBob assumes Gary is responsible. The more evidence appears that something is wrong, the more convinced SpongeBob becomes that Gary is the problem. As the night continues, Puffy Fluffy becomes increasingly dangerous. Gary is forced into a constant struggle just to protect himself. The creature chases him throughout the house, causes destruction, and even creates situations that could have seriously harmed both of them. Meanwhile, SpongeBob remains completely unaware of the danger developing under his own roof. Instead of helping Gary, he repeatedly scolds him for things he didn't do. What makes this episode such a strong example for this topic is that the disaster never needed to happen. What was supposed to be a friendly companion has effectively turned SpongeBob's house into a horror movie for Gary. The irony is that Gary ends up being the responsible one throughout the entire episode. While SpongeBob remains oblivious, Gary spends most of his time trying to survive, protect the house, and eventually save SpongeBob himself. This is one reason why the episode became so memorable among fans. Many viewers felt that his refusal to recognize the problem was what transformed a simple misunderstanding into a full-scale disaster. Another episode that belongs on a list of times SpongeBob made things worse is Fungus Among Us. Unlike many disasters in the series, this one starts with a problem that could have been avoided almost immediately. Early in the episode, Gary discovers a strange fungus growing inside SpongeBob's house and tries to eat it. SpongeBob, believing he's protecting his pet, stops him and attempts to get rid of the fungus himself. That decision seems harmless at first, but it ends up triggering one of the largest outbreaks Bikini Bottom has ever seen. The moment SpongeBob comes into contact with the fungus, things begin to go wrong. What starts as a small patch quickly spreads across his body. Instead of seeking help right away, he spends most of his time trying to handle the situation on his own. Every method he uses only makes the infection worse. Scratching it causes it to spread further, and attempts to remove it only seem to create more fungus. Before long, what was once a minor problem has become impossible to ignore. The reason this episode works so well for this topic is because SpongeBob repeatedly has opportunities to contain the problem but never truly succeeds. Even after arriving at the Krusty Krab covered in fungus, he remains focused on continuing his normal routine. The infection keeps growing, and pieces of it begin spreading beyond just SpongeBob himself. Soon the situation becomes serious enough that emergency crews quarantine him and seal off his home. At that point, the town recognizes the danger, but the damage has already begun. What's interesting is that SpongeBob isn't the only one responsible for the outbreak. Other characters contribute to the spread as well. Squidward accidentally becomes infected and unknowingly passes the fungus to customers. Food becomes contaminated, more residents are exposed, and the infection starts moving through Bikini Bottom faster than anyone can control. Still, SpongeBob remains at the center of the disaster because his initial decision is what allowed the problem to leave his house in the first place. The fungus appears everywhere, affecting customers, workers, and random citizens alike. One of the biggest turning points comes when SpongeBob leaves quarantine. Even though precautions were put in place to keep the infection isolated, circumstances eventually allow him to return to the public. Instead of helping calm the situation, his arrival becomes another step in the outbreak's escalation. Tensions rise, residents look for someone to blame, and SpongeBob becomes the obvious target. From their perspective, nearly everyone in town is suffering because of a problem that started with him. What makes the episode stand out compared to other SpongeBob disasters is its scale. A simple household problem turns into a public health emergency. The chain reaction grows so large that nobody seems capable of stopping it. Ironically, the solution had been present from the very beginning. Gary originally wanted to eat the fungus because that's exactly what he was supposed to do. As it turns out, the fungus isn't some unstoppable threat when handled properly. The entire catastrophe happened because SpongeBob prevented the natural solution from doing its job. After all the panic, quarantines, arguments, and infections, the problem is resolved by allowing Gary to do what he tried to do in the opening scene. Another episode that belongs on the time SpongeBob made things worse is Demolition Doofus. What's interesting about this one is that the disaster begins with a problem that has followed SpongeBob for years: his inability to drive. Countless episodes have shown him failing boating tests, but this time, the consequences are much more serious than a failed exam or a damaged boatmobile. This is one of the few episodes where SpongeBob's driving causes a major injury that completely changes the situation from the very beginning. Eventually, SpongeBob's reckless driving causes a massive accident that leaves Mrs. Puff seriously injured and hospitalized. According to the doctor, her inflation sac has been damaged so badly that she can no longer puff up. For Mrs. Puff, this isn't just another frustrating day at work. It's potentially a life-changing injury. What makes this episode fit the video's theme so well is SpongeBob's reaction afterward. Rather than fully understanding the severity of what happened, he continues behaving as if everything can be solved through enthusiasm and friendliness. He visits Mrs. Puff in the hospital, brings her flowers, and tries to cheer her up. On paper, those actions sound considerate, but in practice, they only make her frustration worse. Every time SpongeBob appears, he unintentionally reminds her of the accident that put her in the hospital in the first place. For Mrs. Puff, this becomes the final straw after years of dealing with SpongeBob's driving. Instead of reporting him or simply removing him from class, she comes up with a much more extreme solution. After witnessing a demolition derby taking place nearby, she gets an idea. Since SpongeBob seems capable of causing destruction wherever he drives, she secretly enters him into the competition under the guise of earning extra credit. Her expectation is simple. Experienced demolition drivers will quickly eliminate him from the event. Despite being one of the worst drivers in Bikini Bottom, he somehow becomes the most dangerous participant in the competition. Not because he's skilled, but because his terrible driving creates unpredictable situations that nobody can anticipate. Every experienced competitor assumes SpongeBob will be an easy target. Instead, they end up crashing into each other, missing their attacks, or accidentally destroying themselves while SpongeBob wanders through the arena almost completely unaware of what's happening. The destruction begins to pile up rapidly. Professional derby drivers are knocked out one after another. Vehicles are wrecked across the arena. Competitors who have spent years perfecting their craft are defeated by someone who barely understands the rules of the event. Ironically, the same terrible driving that injured Mrs. Puff now turns him into an accidental demolition champion. What makes the situation even more absurd is that SpongeBob remains completely oblivious throughout most of the competition. It's a perfect example of SpongeBob turning a bad situation into an even bigger one without realizing it. As the derby continues, Mrs. Puff becomes increasingly furious. Eventually, she takes matters into her own hands and enters the arena herself. What started as an attempt to get SpongeBob out of her life has now become a personal mission. One reason the episode is often discussed by fans is because of how extreme the consequences become. Many viewers point to the hospital accident as one of the most severe outcomes ever caused by SpongeBob's driving, while others focus on how far Mrs. Puff's frustration escalates afterward. The episode remains one of the more controversial entries of the series because nearly every character ends up behaving in increasingly extreme ways as the story progresses. Another episode that deserves a place in the time SpongeBob made things worse is Slide Whistle Stooges. This one begins with something incredibly small. SpongeBob and Patrick get their hands on slide whistles and become completely obsessed with them. To them, it's just a harmless source of entertainment. The problem is that nobody else finds it nearly as amusing as they do. At first, the main victim is Squidward. He's simply trying to enjoy a normal day at home when SpongeBob and Patrick begin following his every action with slide whistle noises. What starts as a minor annoyance gradually becomes relentless. No matter where Squidward goes, the whistles follow. No matter what he does, SpongeBob and Patrick are right behind him providing sound effects. What makes this episode fit the video's theme is that SpongeBob never realizes he's causing a problem. From his perspective, he's sharing something fun with his best friend. The whistles are entertaining, and he assumes everyone else should enjoy them too. Because of that mindset, he completely ignores Squidward's growing frustration. Every attempt Squidward makes to escape only encourages SpongeBob and Patrick to follow him even further. Instead of recognizing that they're making the situation worse, they interpret his reactions as part of the game. Eventually, Squidward reaches his breaking point. After spending nearly the entire episode being tormented by constant whistles, he finally snaps. In a twist that drives the rest of the story, he takes a slide whistle for himself. For a brief moment, it seems like the conflict is over. SpongeBob and Patrick are thrilled that Squidward has finally joined in on the fun. But in reality, the situation is about to become much worse than it already was. Once Squidward starts using the whistle himself, the chaos spreads beyond just the three of them. He begins using it on random citizens throughout Bikini Bottom, creating confusion and causing problems wherever he goes. The harmless toy that spent the first half of the episode annoying one person suddenly becomes a citywide nuisance. This is where SpongeBob's original actions come back to haunt everyone. Had he and Patrick simply left Squidward alone, the episode essentially turns into a chain reaction. SpongeBob and Patrick annoy Squidward. Squidward embraces the behavior himself, and the consequences spread across the entire town. What started as a small annoyance develops into complete disorder. Citizens begin chasing Squidward through the streets, turning the episode into a massive pursuit. One reason the episode is remembered so strongly by fans is because of just how irritating SpongeBob and Patrick can be throughout the story. Even people who enjoy the episode frequently acknowledge that their inability to stop playing the whistles is what pushes Squidward over the edge in the first place. Looking back at these episodes, a common pattern starts to emerge. In almost every case, SpongeBob isn't trying to cause problems. He's usually attempting to help someone. The trouble is that his enthusiasm often gets in the way of good judgment. What's interesting is that these disasters wouldn't be nearly as memorable if SpongeBob had bad intentions. Part of what makes them stand out is the fact that most of them begin with genuinely good motives. At the same time, these episodes highlight one of the reasons SpongeBob has remained such a popular character for so many years. Despite all the chaos he causes, it's difficult to stay angry at him for long. His mistakes come from optimism, determination, and a belief that things will work out if he keeps trying. No matter how badly things go wrong, he'll always wake up the next day ready to help again. Those were some of the times SpongeBob made things worse. If there are any episodes you think should have made the list, feel free to mention them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.